All right, so we're all set up, we're all squared away and ready to go. We've got our customized battle grid layout, which we've customized ourselves. I've customized my own army, which I'm using the Wretched Army, and my opponent is using the Last Remnants Army, which they've customized as well. So there's a couple things I want to talk to you about during the setup phase, which first and foremost is the initiative button. The initiative button is a very integral part of the game and distinguishes who is going to go first. So when I have the initiative button, I can choose whether I'm going to go first or my opponent's going to go first for that particular round. Now, in the first round, in order to determine that, you can determine if, in the event of a tie where both of your armies add up to the same number of points, you can roll for a die, which will determine that. Or if, in this case, my opponent's army was 99 points out of 100, and mine was 100 points. So they would start with the button. Now my opponent is going to choose whether or not they want to go first or I want to go first. In this case, they're going to choose I'm going to go first. The reason being is they want to see what I'm going to put out on the battlefield and adjust their strategy accordingly. Okay? So we have everything all in place. We have our finished tiles, or finished tokens, excuse me. We have our hit point tokens, some dice. That's all we really need. So for the first turn, each army starts with 14 credits to use and spend on their characters for the first round. After that, each subsequent round, you'll be rolling for resources during the resource phase in order to determine how many credits will be used or can be used for your army. So this is where the fun part starts. I'm going to take a look at my army and I'm going to say, you know what? Based on this battle grid layout, I'm going to take, there's a lot of credit points out there. I think I'm going to try and get some resources early and not worry so much about the victory points and get some stronger characters out there. So I'm going to take an armored skelly, a zombie, and a skeleton, which comes out to 13 credit points. So I'm going to deploy them in the deployment zone, which is right in front, which is right here, right in front of my entry zone, which are the first 5 tiles in front of me. My opponent will take a look at what I put out and will now decide what he's going to put out, he or she's going to put out. They're going to take a recon scout and a meat shield, which they're both going to go into the deployment zone on their side. Okay, so now that I've seen what they're going to take, now it's my turn again, and I'm going to deploy them onto the entry zone. We're going to put the armored skelly here. We're going to put the zombie here and the skeleton here. Okay? So, first things first, now my opponent will choose where he's going to put his units. And the meat shield on there. And the recon scout. And each one of these characters has different abilities that will help them throughout the battle doing, a multitude of different things. It's fun. It gets to be a lot of fun when you start to understand what some of these characters can do in congruence with other characters. So, that being said, now that we've got everybody out onto the entry zone, we are good to go for the following round. Now, the first thing that happens is we pass the initiative button. The initiative button gets passed to me and we start our first round. Oh, and I forgot a very important part of this. So you might wonder, why didn't you move your characters? Every character starts, when they come out onto the battlefield, starts with a summoning sickness and cannot move directly after that point unless they have a specific ability, which tells you otherwise. Reason being is we want to allow our opponent to be able to react to what's coming out and what's coming at them. So we have discussed everything for the setup phase, and we've talked about summoning sickness, our deployment, all those fun things, and we're ready to get started on the first actual round, which is subsequent to the setup phase. So the first thing that's going to happen is the opponent is going to trade the initiative button, give it to me, and I'm going to decide whether or not I want to go first or I would like my opponent to go first. So I'm going to choose my opponent to go first because I'd like to see what they're going to do and I'm in no danger of any of my characters getting hit, so it makes sense for me to kind of adjust my strategy accordingly. So, with that being said, one thing to keep in mind, we're going to go through the round sequence here in 1 second, but remember, I put out 13 points worth of characters, and my opponent put out 14 points worth of characters. So I saved 1 credit to bank for this particular round. So we've gone over the initiative phase, which is passing the button and deciding who's going to go first. The next round here, or the next phase, is the resource phase. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take a D20, and I'm going to roll for the 2 of us. And I rolled a 15. Okay, so that's a good number for us. Now you can't split 15 in 2, so we round up to 16, and then we split it into 2. So my opponent and I get 8 credits used from our armies to bring out onto the battlefield and deploy in the deployment zone. So, I will, since I've decided my opponent is going to go first, my opponent has 8 credits to spend, and they're going to bring out a blaster, which is a dangerous character. In response to that, I have 9 credits because I saved the credit from the prior round, and with those 9 credits, I'm going to bring out my vampire assassin and put him on the deployment phase, the deployment zone, excuse me. Okay, now my opponent puts their character out onto the entry zone, which they're going to put in the center tile here, which is great. And I'm going to put my vampire assassin on this tile here. I kind of want to stay away from the meat shield. He has a taunt ability which is very dangerous and can kind of pull him in and make him a little bit void his abilities, which would really suck. So that being said, when these characters come out on the battlefield, they have summoning sickness, so we put an end token on there in front of them, so our opponent knows that they're done. And we're now going to go to the action phase. And this is where the fun really starts. This is where you really have to start thinking about strategy and how you want to approach the battlefield and what you want to do, which is great. This is the core part of the game. So my opponent's going to go first, and my opponent is going to move a meat shield, let's say, with 2 action points, move 2 spaces, and he is now finished. And then in response to that, I'm going to move my zombie up 2 spaces because he has 2 action points with 1 movement. And now they have 1 character left, which they have the Recon Scout, who has 3 action points. And he's going to go straight for a victory point. So he lands on a victory point. There goes the end token. Okay. Now, what would I like to do here? You know what? I'm pretty safe to say I'm going to put my skeleton, who has 2 action points, onto another credit point. And our finished tile here. And our enemy now has no more characters to use, so I'm going to use my final movement with my final action with my armored skelly, and he is going to go right. He's going to kind of go to the left here. He has 3 action points, so he's going to move 3 tiles and finish right there. Okay? So that was the end of the action phase. We're going to move on to the control phase, which determines which characters were on which tiles, and you tally up those points to collect for the following rounds. For example, I have 2 credit points that I'm on, so I will receive 2 credits for the following round. My opponent is on 1 credit point, so they will receive another credit for the following round. And they are on 1 victory point, which I'm not on any victory points, so they get 1 victory point to tally up for their total. Now, on our final board, we have a spot allocated to tallying up those points. It makes it so you don't have to keep track written notes or anything. The 2 of you can both keep track with markers, which is very nice. And following that, we get to the cleanup phase, which is obviously pretty self-explanatory. We pretty much just pick up these tokens. Let's square this away. And we're done with the cleanup phase. That's it. You know, after that, we pass the initiative button and we move on to the following round. So there's a pretty quick tutorial on how to play the game and getting into the game. You can see very quickly you get into the heart of battle and things start to develop very fast. So you got to really work on your strategy and figure out what you like, using characters that you particularly like. That maybe there are a lot of characters that work well against different armies. The remnants just so happen to be kind of a defensive army, so maybe I'm going to go strong with some mounted wights who have good movement and can knock guys off of points. There's so many different tandems in the game, and I hope you guys enjoyed watching what we have here. I'm extremely excited to get this thing out there to you guys, and I hope with your support we can really make this thing come to reality. So thanks so much for your time, and I hope you enjoyed watching, and please pledge your support. Thanks so much.